Hey, what's up, guys? There's a new breaking article on the Florida Bulldog, Dan Christensen, about the FBI's active investigation into the attempts of the fifth hijacking of United Airlines Flight 23, something I mentioned about 3 years ago between me and Richard Cox, co-host of Darkened Hour. We made a podcast about the attempted hijacking of Flight 23, something that me and my co-researcher DJ Thumbadender, we've talked about over the years about the additional hijackings and who these people were, which is related to the additional arrests of September 13th that Nelson, DJ Thumbadender, has so actively investigated over the couple of years. And here we have a TMZ, of all people, of all news publications, TMZ actually gives this story light. Look at that. All of a sudden, now there's an active investigation. So what we're going to do, we're going to pull up the article and we're going to read together because I think what's in here is very interesting. So here we go. FBI acknowledges it's actively investigating apparent attempt to hijack the fifth flight on 9/11. And I'll even, I'm sorry about that. I'll pull this up. I'll magnify it just again, so this way you can read it. Right. So nearly 22 years after al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked and crashed 4 U.S. passenger jets in the worst attacks on American soil since Pearl Harbor, the FBI has disclosed that it is actively investigating an apparent attempt to hijack a fifth plane on 9/11. According to the TMZ documentary, the FBI shut down this case. And, this is related to also the Saudi embassy may have funded a dry run. Now I'm going to get to that in a minute. Before 9/11, the plane, a wide-body Boeing 767, was operated by United Airlines. At 9 o'clock that morning, Flight 23 was scheduled to make a nonstop transcontinental trip from John F. Kennedy International Airport to Los Angeles, just like the Logan planes, Flight 11 and 175. One was American, one was United, going from JFK to LAX. Newark was going to San Francisco. Remember, they picked large intercontinental trips because the planes would be fully loaded with kerosene, making them a bomb when they hit these buildings. Aboard were about 160 passengers, 8 or 9 crew members, and more than 50,000 gallons of jet fuel. Now, remember, the other 4 planes barely had, a full load. Some of them were less than capacity. But this plane wasn't. Because these people were not part of the 19, well, it could have been a little bit more or less, but these people obviously didn't train with Muhammad Atta and the others, because we have no information relating to who these people were. Atta and Marwan al-Shadi, they actually went to airports like Atlanta and surveilled the security apparatuses. This is from the FBI owned information about interviewing airline employees and security personnel. And there's over 1,200 memorandums for the records on the National Archives, which you can read, and I'm uploading, a lot of them on my WordPress. They're invaluable. And just imagine the interviews that they have classified. So obviously, this is a full load almost. 160 people would have made, if this plane would have been hijacked, it would have made this plane the most populated plane out of all. Something to think about. Remember, the Hamburg cell, they scoured the security measures of the airlines. They knew that the planes were going to be less than half full. That means they studied the days in which most people fly, which month. They did their homework. Not these people, but they knew how to get away. Flight 23 in 2001 is not mentioned in the final report of the 9/11 Commission, even though Commission records, staff showed that they were well aware of it. Now, remember also the Joint House Inquiry co-chair, Bob Graham, even admits that they were aware about the attempted additional hijackings. Even the Joint Inquiry knew. The alleged 20th hijacker, Zacharias Moussaoui, acted as his own defense. Now, remember, he's not tortured. He doesn't have to admit to nothing, but he admits that he was selected with the initial phase, but then got relegated to the second wave of attacks. Now, remember, the intelligence community were listening to these phone calls of bin Laden and al-Qaeda associates in Yemen and Afghanistan. If this operation was known to them, now remember, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed told bin Laden, take this with great assault, that there were going to be 10 planes, because that is from the Bajinka plot. Bajinka plot, which was constructed by a number of people, mainly the 93 bomber Ramzi Youssef and his uncle Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, as well as an associate Abdul Hakim Murad, who gave the idea of hijacking a plane to crash into CIA Langley to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Who's to say that the intelligence services heard about the 10 planes theory and decided to have these operatives on these planes outside the Hamburg cell? But who are these people? Well, they all got deported on September 13th, just like the Israelis. The intelligence apparatuses, intelligence, Saudi and Israeli intelligence, they all got deported too, just like these suspects in the additional hijackings. Okay, Florida Bulldog reported that little-known story of Flight 23 last September, which included information provided by pilot Tom Manello, that he and other crew members were interviewed by the FBI the next day, September 12th. The Bulldog filed a Freedom of Information request for FBI records about Flight 23. I did that about 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm a civilian, so I didn't get it. The FBI recently responded by acknowledging that it has records about Flight 23, but they are exempt from public disclosure. Well, that's what I was told by the National Archives, because I'm not law enforcement. There is a pending or prospective law enforcement proceeding relevant to these responsive records, and the release of the information could responsibly be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings. Therefore, your request is being administratively closed, wrote Joseph Bender Jr., acting section chief of the FBI's Record Information Dissemination Section. The letter does not elaborate, but given the passage of so many years, it seems plausible that the FBI probe is approaching a decision point as to whether to bring a criminal charge. Well, against two. They deported these people through INS. They were detained on September 13th, September 14th in New York. 2 flights, 2 airports, LaGuardia and JFK. Over 50 people were arrested. Police went on these planes, detained these people forcibly. Some of them, one was dressed as a pilot, and he's related to the bin Laden family. I'm not making this up. And allegedly, thanks to DJ Thermal Detonator, the people on 23 were going to hijack or attempted to other planes on September 13th. He wrote an article about it. It is well known that the 19 al-Qaeda jihadists, including 15 citizens of Saudi Arabia, engaged in 4 coordinated hijackings on 9/11. 2 jetliner crashed into Twin Towers, World Trade Center, another rammed the Pentagon. The 4th drove into a field near Shanksville as passengers fought to gain control. Those hijacked flights originated all at airports in Boston, Newark, New Jersey, and suburban Washington, D.C. That's Dulles. Captain Tom Manello was preparing Flight 23 for his pushback from JFK Terminal 7 when he got the first hint that something wasn't quite right. The guy doing the pushback asked me if I'd heard anything about a fire at the World Trade Center. I said, no. I thought nothing more of it. Tom Manello to a Florida Bulldog last year. Cleared to taxi to a runway, Manello and his co-pilot Carol Timmons got in line with about 10 other planes that were lined up. Nobody was taken off. A report soon arrived that a plane had crashed the World Trade Center. Manello charged it off to somebody in a Cessna doing something stupid. In fact, at 8:46 a.m., Mohammed Atta rammed Flight 11 into the North Tower. 17 minutes later, al-Shahid flew 175 into the face of the South Tower. Both aircrafts were 767s like Flight 23. At 9:20 a.m., United's aircraft communications and response system sent out a warning. This is called an ACARS message. It's sent to the cockpit. Beware, any cockpit intrusion. 2 aircraft in New York hit Trade Center buildings. Manello and Timmons, who a decade later became the first woman general in Delaware Air National Guard, reacted immediately Manello grabbed the plane's crash axe. Timmons wedged the suitcases between a metal bulkhead and the cockpit door. Smart. Then Manello heard the strangest radio call I've ever heard in my life. New York ground controllers in the tower said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the airport is now officially closed. We've been ordered to evacuate this facility. You are on your own." That broadcast came from the CEO of United Airlines, Gerald Arpey, who was the first person to order a stand down of aircraft, which is unprecedented in history. And then later, shortly, just after that, Norman Mineta ordered the national stand down of all planes, or grounding of all planes. So Gerald Arpey is actually a hero. Tom Manello notified via intercom the flight attendants, told them not to try and enter the cockpit. One flight attendant quickly replied, "We've got these 4 weird young Arab guys sitting in first class. It's unusual." As Manello taxied back to the gate, he took a route with a view of Manhattan. He and Timmons could see thick black smoke pouring out of the World Trade Center. Parked at the gate, Manello and Timmons, who died in August of 2020, shut down the engines as passengers, including the 4 Arabs deplaned. When they were ready to leave, Manello looked through the cockpit door's peephole and saw a mechanic waiting. He says, "You got to clear out. I'm ordered to lock up the airplane," Manello said. FBI notified about Flight 23. Manello, now retired, went to the chief pilot's office and described what had happened with the Arabs. The chief pilot called the FBI. Agents questioned the crew at length the following day. An agent told Manello that there were actually 7 Arabs or Muslims who might have been Saudis on the plane. 7. There were a couple with a 2 or 3-year-old baby. We're looking for the other 4 gentlemen, the agent said. Now, according to the TMZ documentary, or the film, one of the flight attendants, I forgot her name, basically saw what looked to be about a woman and had a full hijab and niqab, right? However, there was hair on the person's arms. Sean Russell, who's a 9/11 co-researcher and co-host of Beyond Ground Zero podcast, brought something really awesome to my attention. I never thought of it. He gets full credit. Is that Muhammad Atta wrote a last will and testament. In the last will and testament, it says to shave your body hair for preparation into Jannah, which is heaven. Now, all the hijackers shaved themselves, their beards, their body hair, in preparation because they knew they were going to die. Well, there's hair on this guy's arms. Why wouldn't they shave their arms if they're part of Atta's operation? Who are these people? That's the question we need to ask, because if they're separate from Atta, holy cow, do we have a case? Who are they? Who sent them? It's a question. I mean, there's so many anomalies with 9/11, but yet nobody talks about these issues because they rather believe the sensational. Because with the sensational, you're allowed to believe anything and hold you in a state of paralysis where you can't do nothing. But people really don't want to do anything. They want to believe that they're doing something. So they believe in the fantastical. Last March, TMZ investigates broadcast a program about Flight 23 that took the story further. 2 flight attendants said the 4 Arabs in first class with 2 men, a young boy and a woman in an enveloping burqa. Well, they all believe was a man posing as a woman. The men were impatient to take off. One flight attendant noted that a man in business class wearing a T-shirt and sweating profusely, even though the plane was fully cooled. Flight attendants also stated that everyone was believed to have been deplaned. It was discovered that the floor hatch, as you can see here, behind the crew cabin and under carpeting had been opened, leading to an electronics compartment and another hatch that opens out on the underside of the plane. Manello did not observe it, but speculated it may have been used by someone on the ground to enter the plane to retrieve weapons like box cutters. Hey, Remember, there were draft reports in American Airlines 11 that there was a gun on the plane, which killed Daniel Lewin. What about long knives found at the field in Shanksville? What about the long knives that were reported on Flight 77? There was a gun reported on 77. How would they get them on these planes? This is right behind the this is the electronics bay. And there's another door here. See this door? That leads to the ground. So that means that the person on the ground can enter through here. Here's the electronics area. Come up here into the cabin and into the plane. And this is how you get additional hijackers on a plane, or maybe getting off. Yet another flight attendant that day who was not on the program recently contacted Florida Bulldog. She agreed that 4 Arabs in first class were 2 men, a boy, and a person in a burqa that she believed was a man posing as a woman. She said she took their tickets, saw the passports, but could not recall the country. Flight attendant said that after the plane returned to the gate and people began deplaning, she watched a passenger agent come on board and say, "We don't know if there are bombs on board. We're going to move these airplanes away from the gate so it doesn't affect the terminal. The mechanic is going to come on board and drive the airplane away from the gate." I heard all that. The woman who asked not to be named said she and her colleagues searched the plane to make sure everyone was off, that no packages were left behind. She said the mechanic had entered the cockpit, and she saw the last crew member to step off the plane when she decided to go back to grab a bottle of water. The 4 Arab passengers in first class were gone. All passengers were gone. All crew members were gone. There was a mechanic in the cockpit, and I stepped on alone, the flight attendant said. And at that moment, 2 men came out of hiding. They were on board our airplane in the back galley. They looked at me dead in the eye and turned their backs to me. Everything in me said run. I grabbed a bottle of water and I got off that airplane. Who were those 2 men? Those are the 2 hijackers? FBI? Who are they? The flight attendant says she doesn't know how the 2 men came to be there. She doesn't think they were United kitchen workers or mechanics. I will tell you now, I'm convinced they were hiding in a meal cart. Or they were in this area. Remember, the FBI, this is under carpet, by the way. When the FBI got on the plane, carpet was torn away and this was open. Now, again, myself, Nelson Martins, DJ Thermal Detonator, we are Paul Thompson. Very few people investigated the airline industry security apparatuses being compromised, hiring third world workers in the Middle East. Argabright Security was found liable, and Frank Argabright, president of his own company, was fired. He's the only person held responsible for 9/11, and he wasn't even responsible. Poor hiring practices? Sure. Pure vetting practices? Sure. He's not responsible for 9/11. It's not his fault. But the security apparatuses, like Massport, Massachusetts Port Authority, like Argabright Security, like Hunt Delay Security, there was Arabs working at these airlines. Now, who's to say that they could have been associates of somebody involved with this operation? Very well could be the case. And we have evidence to suggest this. So this is not a stretch to say to imagine, nor this is a fringe conspiracy. This is how weapons could be planted up planes. Similar to the fashion that the intelligence services, domestic and foreign, made sure that the operation went smoothly, whether directly or indirectly, through their own malfeasance or what is suspected to be their own nefarious agendas. And I'm willing to say it's very few, not as many as the 9/11 Truth Movement thinks, because to them, everyone's involved. Okay. What I was told by an FBI person is that they came forward. The mechanic confronted them. And when he said, "What are you doing?" they pretended that they didn't speak English. He went in the cockpit. He locked the door and called for security. They ripped the carpet up off the floor and opened to the wheel well. They went down through that and electronic room. I thought it was a wheel well. I guess they had access to the wheel well, but it's all the electronics there, and they escaped off the tarmac. How would they know that? This is huge for my speculation. And this is a very important opinion of mine. I have no evidence to back this up, what I'm about to tell you. But it's something that really is going to be either outright false or a direct link to Israeli intelligence. Hear me out. Now, I've always theorized, baseless speculation, be careful, right? That Ziad Jarrah, the alleged pilot of Flight 93, was never on that plane. I think he's the only part of the Hamburg cell not on that plane. Atta, I don't know. Jarrah, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Ziad Jarrah came out after 9/11 years later. That Ziad Jarrah really didn't fit the profile. I wrote an article about this. I've done videos ad nauseum. That's true. He was born in Bekaa Valley, Lebanon, raised by non-religious parents, never went to religious schooling, madrasas. He was friends with Jews and Christians. He was a playboy, actually, when he was very young. He went to clubs, liked to drink. Just like any young man at the age of 23, 22. Moved to Germany. And then right out the blue, starts meeting contacts like people like Abdul Rahman and Marcel K. Hussein. Look that name up. You ain't going to find much besides historycommons.com, which is only available through Wayback Machine. Go look at my channel, type in Ziad Jarrah, look through the videos, or I'll link. No, well, you go to my Medium channel. I'll post it about Ziad Jarrah's family. Okay, look up what Ziad Jarrah was linked with. Now, he goes to Germany and he goes to the most radical Salafist mosque in Hamburg called Al-Quds. Out of the blue. No history whatsoever of radical fundamentalism. Neither his family. Nobody gets situated with people like Ramzi bin al-Shib, Muhammad Atta, Marwan al-Shehi, Saeed Bahaji, Munir al-Montasek. And then later on, bigger contacts who groom them, like Muhammad Haydar Zamar, Marmoon Darkanzali, gun runners from Syria, Al-Qaeda contacts in Afghanistan, recruiters with nefarious backgrounds. Look up those people. And then these young men, all of a sudden, go to Afghanistan in 2000. And unlike La Cosa Nostra, where it takes years to meet the top people, and you don't never meet the boss unless you're a consigliere or not even a captain, but you got to be high ranking. No, they go and meet who? Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the second emir, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I'm sorry, I said him. Mohammed Attab, the military commander of Al-Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden himself, the top leading emirs and leaders of Al-Qaeda in the religious and which is the Shura Committee and the military committee. No, going through, they supposedly went through 2 weeks of security detail. But Ziad Jarrah was with them, so they couldn't see Ziad Jarrah's family background. Now, what I'm insinuating is this: years later, after 9/11, Ziad Jarrah's family came under harsh suspicion, came with an arrest. I think this was 2011 of an uncle, or is it a cousin? I always get this mixed up. It's an uncle or a cousin. I think it's a cousin. Ali al-Jarrah. Doesn't ring a bell? Ali al-Jarrah was a school teacher in Lebanon and a Hezbollah operative. But what nobody knew at the time was that he was Mossad a spy for Israeli intelligence. He wasn't Mossad, but he was a spy for Israel for 25 years. Not 5 years, not 15, 25. And what got him caught was that he suspected of giving information to the CIA and Israeli intelligence about the whereabouts of the second commander of Hezbollah, Imad Mughniya, who has a long history with Hezbollah, including hijackings, right? And he was killed by a drone, which was ordered by Israeli and CIA. And that got him in trouble, and he was arrested. Now, he has a brother. No, he doesn't stop there. He has a brother, Joseph al-Jarrah, who helped Ali al-Jarrah for 10 of those years to Israel. Doesn't stop there. He has a cousin, Assam al-Jarrah, who was not only a Abu Nadav operative, but he's also a spy for Libya, Germany, the BFE, the LFE, Israel. See where I'm going with this? I'm not saying Ziad Jarrah is an Israeli spy, but if you're telling me that Al-Qaeda couldn't find this information or his family background, that means this security apparatus really sucks. And that Ziad Jarrah compromised this operation. Now, we're to speculate, like I'm doing now, that Ziad Jarrah is an Israeli spy mold that the CIA always wanted, because Cofer Black, the director of counterterrorism since in 1999, he was shocked that the CIA had no contacts inside Al Qaeda, and he was rectifying that. So he wrote a plan called the Plan, right, 1999, because George Tenet told him he wants to rectify. Give me an outline about how we could do this. So Cofer Black and the CIA tried to build contacts with the Northern Alliance under Ahmed Shah Massoud to get close to Al Qaeda. But these people from Al Qaeda, they don't take, they're not prisoners. They kill themselves. So Northern Alliance was like, every time we capture these people, they kill themselves. So the CIA was trying to build that. Now, CIA doesn't have Arab linguists. So who has Arab linguists? Saudi GID, Pakistan ISI, Egypt SSI, right? Arab countries. You know who else? Israel, through the I always forget that covert agency where they look like Arabs, dress like Arabs, and speak the language. It always kills me. I always forget this name, but they're a covert agency. And who's to say that the Mr. Abrim, I cheated, I looked online. The Mr. Avrim, look it up, Mr. Avrim. MISTAVR something, RVIM, Mr. Avrim. Really, what they do is Israeli intelligence, this unit, very covert, very small unit, they trained Israeli Arabs, okay, and Israelis, to basically go into areas where there's Palestinian liberation groups, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hamas. They go into neighborhoods like West Bank, and to Jenin, the refugee camp, and they hide among these people, but they got to be there for, sometimes it's 2 years, 3 years, these operations. They learn the culture, learn the Arabs, so they assimilate into the culture. And if they hear about certain things about an attacking Israeli, all this information goes back. Now, they'll even hire Arabs who want, don't want to go through the racially segregated checkpoints or medicine for a sick family member, and they'll act as spies. So who's to say that Ziad Jarrah was not a spy for Israel and spying inside the planes operation all the way until the day itself to make sure that these operations go through? That's my speculation. But what did the FBI make of all this, and why is it actively investigating the matter more than 2 decades later? The Bureau isn't saying. We know, however, that the Chicago-based dispatcher in control of all United coast-to-coast flights on 9/11, a total of 16 jetliners, including ill-fated flights of 175 and 93 when crashed in Pennsylvania as passengers fought with the hijackers, told 9/11 Commission staff about Flight 23 during an interview on April 24, 2004. According to a 10-page memorandum for the record, Ed Bollinger stated that he'd been told by United personnel that the Muslims, Flight 23, never claimed their baggage, and in their baggage was significant information of an incriminating nature. The memorandum goes on to say that Bollinger, who issued the beware any cockpit intrusion warning, believes that communications may have prevented the hijacking of Flight 23. Bollinger repeated his story in an interview with Florida Bulldog. There was evidence that more plane attacks were planned. For example, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, Justice Department officials told reporters that agents conducted security sweeps that found box cutters, knives, like those carried by the 9/11 hijackers, on 2 Delta passenger flights scheduled to fly that day. At that time, it was not known how box cutters got there, and the matter quickly faded away. This is how I met DJ Thumber Detonator. We were talking about the Jacob plot and the additional hijackings on planes and Facebook, I think in 2015. And we were both shocked that we knew about this. I learned it from Paul Thompson, Terror Timeline. And I read a CNN article that talked about the additional weapons found on additional flights. What? I never knew that, right? December 24, 2001, FBI report made public in March of 2022 said a box cutter was found under the seat of an American Airlines plane that flew from San Diego JFK as Flight 160 and back again on September 10th. September 10th. The jetliner was scheduled to fly to JFK on 9/11, but never left San Diego because of the shutdown of the nation's airports. FBI agents later determined that the seat of Flight 160 was occupied by, name redacted, one of the 13 Saudi Arabian pilots previously reported on by San Diego FBI. Bingo! Now, this is a connection to a story I'm going to read after this, right? Okay. At the time of the report, agents had not yet identified the occupant of the seat on the return flight on September 10th. What else has happened on September 10th? Now, thanks to reporters Susan and Joe Trento, Unsafe at Any Altitude, they wrote a book where it is reported by, and something that was investigated by DJ Thumber Detonator, is that they, two of the 9/11 hijackers were at Dulles on September 10th, going through security with 4 other people, 3 of them dressed as ramp workers for American Airlines, 3 others dressed as regular civilian clothing. But the ramp worker clothing were filthy, looked like they were taken out of a locker or a laundry bag. And the security guard who was guarding the tarmac door leading to the plane, his name is Eric Gill. And he said that he had an argument with these people because they didn't have the extra security pass to get through the tarmac. And they cursed at him. And then they walked away. Next day was 9/11. Days later, he saw the pictures of the hijackers and identified 2 of them as the 2 people he argued with on September 10th. Who's to say that they weren't going to try to put planes on the weapons of Flight 77? Who's to say that they didn't? Because Eric Gill said he left for the evening that night and there's no security at the door when he leaves. They may have watched him leave. Or did they have help putting weapons on planes? Remember, there's a gun report on Flight 77. 2 weeks after 9/11, CNN reported that officials had said they searched flights while all flights were grounded, turned up 2 small knives on a scheduled Delta flight out of Boston. And a box cutter was found on an Atlanta to Brussels Delta flight. Justice Department spokesman Charles Miller confirmed to CNN that box cutters were found on some planes but provided no further information. Why? Because those people weren't captured. They were gone. It's safer to say, hey, 19 men, that's it, because they're dead. They can't speak. But if these guys, whoever they were, outside the Hamburg cell, and whoever told them about this operation, or, we don't know. But they're gone, and they're alive somewhere. They're not in the United States. They're gone, long gone. Investigators increasingly believe that the weapons may have been pre-positioned by accomplices for use by others. As one U.S. official told Time magazine, they look like inside jobs. CNN reported. This is not a fringe conspiracy. The media is reporting this. See, the media is not covering up everything. They actually, the cover-up happens much later when they don't report something. But in the times of what's happening at the time being, this is why it's so important to watch the news on September 12th, 13th, 14th, all the way to like September 17th, even a week after the attacks. Because like what DJ Domodedir has been doing, which everybody should be doing, is look at those reports. They're telling you, hey, look, inside job. It's in the 9/11 Truth Movement says, oh, they're covering up. No, afterwards, maybe later, yeah, with the help of the intelligence services of the government, but not on the day itself or the days afterwards. They're telling you the truth because they're getting their information vice versa before the cover-up begins. You'll notice that with every human event in history. JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, 1993, World Trade Center bomb. Flight 23 contains a twist in the box cutter's angle. According to Tom Manello, United personnel reported finding box cutters stashed on the United jet at JFK while all the nation's planes were grounded. He got a call from the chief pilot of one of the flight manufacturers who asked the tail number of the plane he'd been on. Authorities wanted to know if it was Manello's plane. Flight 23's tail number ended in 6002. It was parked near another plane with the number 6001. They found the box cutters on 6001, Manello said, who wondered whether they were placed there on the wrong plane by mistake. That's the end of the article. Wow. Well, okay. Now, whoever these people are, were they put there by domestic intelligence or foreign intelligence? I couldn't tell you. It's so wide open. But let me read you an article. This is an article dated, I think, 2017. Saudi embassy may have funded 9/11 driver on report. Now, I've known about this a long time. Now, if we scroll down, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if we scroll down, I will read you. Where should I read from? Right here. The story cites FBI documents in the complaint alleging Saudi students Mohammed al-Qudahin and Hamdan al-Shalawi were in fact members of the kingdom's network of agents in the U.S. and participated in the conspiracy. During the flight in November of 1999, the Saudis are reported to have attempted to get into the plane's cockpit to test security. The pilots made an emergency landing because of the incident, and the men were interrogated by the FBI, which eventually let them go. The FBI confirmed the men's airline tickets were paid for by the Saudi embassy in Washington. Now, Qudahin, this guy, Mohammed al-Qudahin, actually went to the cockpit door, tried to get in. And then when the flight attendant said, no, sir, that's the cockpit, he said, oh, I wanted to use the bathroom. Back of the plane. He did it a second time. Now the flight attendant's really worried. Now they're asking her too, how do you cut off the oxygen and stuff like that? Asking real question. Well, that's how they got the attention of the FBI. Now, why am I showing you this? Because this, I think, is important. Because this shows you a deep-rooted connection of foreign intelligence involvement with the pre-dry runs of 9/11 and how other people may have been involved in this operation, right? So this is an FBI document from the 9/11 Commission report. And these are all suspects, Saudi suspects, in the Pent Bomb investigation and later the Operation Encore files. And this is a 9/11 staffers commission box. I think it was team 6 or 7. As you can see, work plan issues, right? 12, Mohammed al-Qudahin and Hamdan al-Shalawi. Al-Qudahin and al-Shalawi were both Saudi students living in the Phoenix area. Kudahin was receiving funding from the Saudi government during his time in Phoenix. Kudahin and al-Shalawi were involved in a 1999 incident aboard American West flight that the FBI's Phoenix office now believes may have been a dry run for September 11 attacks. Al-Kudahin and al-Shalawi were traveling to Washington, D.C. to attend a party at the Saudi embassy. The Saudi embassy paid for their airfare. According to FBI documents, during the flight, they engaged in suspicious behavior, including several attempts to gain access to the cockpit. The plane made an emergency landing in Ohio, but no charges were filed against either individual. The FBI subsequently received information in November 2000 that al-Shalawi had been trained at the terrorist camps in Afghanistan to conduct Khobar Towers types of attacks. And the FBI also developed information telling al-Kudahin to terrorist elements as well. Bingo. Bingo. Now, there was a car that was rented by people in an FBI memo, the Phoenix memo, which I interviewed the FBI agent who wrote that, Ken Williams, who actually is currently helping the victims' families to Creedler against the wishes of the FBI, who told him not to do it. Now, in his Phoenix memo, he gave a warning that there were elements in Phoenix training at flight schools that were connected to terrorist groups that may have connection to Al-Qaeda. But these were groups not related to Al-Qaeda. Zacharias al-Subra was the main ringleader of this, who had pictures of bin Laden in his house, according to Ken Williams when he interviewed him. Spewing anti-American vitriol in Israel. This guy really was out there. So these groups connected to this Al-Mujahideen group, which is a fundamentalist group in the Middle East, which is similarly affiliated with Al-Qaeda, but not so much. Could this been part of the 9/11 planes operation? I don't know. But there is a connection, because we do have people connected to Phoenix who are trying to, test security. Well, guess who's testing security too, involved with the planes operation? Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shade. Now, who's to say that these people aren't part of the operation? And if that's the case, why are these people not investigated by the FBI? Just to put it out there, that the Saudi embassy, the Saudi government has connections to the 9/11 attacks, and maybe to the additional attempted hijackings. Something to look into. So that's the latest updates that we have. I'll link the article, of course, in the description. You can take a look at it. And as always, when there's always updates, I will report them without bias and without prejudice. See you in the next video.